This is Ken Hance, best storyteller in Texas. Yesterday was Super Bowl. Still think of a few of the odd things that happened and that have happened over the years. Mm-hmm. And the saying of the day, and this applies to all Super Bowl players, failure is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign you have not given up. You're still competing.
Still in the game.
Still in the game. There was a guy that bragged that he had been wrong on the Super Bowl. He picked Super Bowl champions. He'd been wrong 16 straight times, and yesterday made 17. So, he's not a guy to bet on unless you just go bet on the wrong way. It reminds me of the true, false, and multiple choice exams I used to give. And if you got a 0, if you got them all wrong, I'd give you A in the class. And you'd be surprised the number of kids that made an 8 or a 6 or a 7 or something. And here's the deal: if you know all the wrong answers, you know all the right answers. So don't try I think that after they, did real poor, they figured out that was a trick.
Tried to get a 0.
Tried to get a 0.
Couldn't be done.
Tried to get 100.
Well, there's big news this week in Washington. I've got some audio to share with you from NBC's Ryan Riley. The investigation into President Biden's handling of sensitive documents was finally released. Here's the report from NBC.
Tonight, the long-awaited report by Special Counsel Robert Hur concludes that no criminal charges against President Biden are warranted. But the investigation uncovered evidence that President Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after his vice presidency when he was a private citizen, including marked classified documents about Afghanistan and notebooks with sensitive intelligence sources and methods, which he shared with a ghostwriter. The report says that posed serious risks to national security. The special counsel's report offers scathing details of what it calls his diminished faculties and faulty memory. Writing, if charged, Mr. Biden will likely present himself to the jury, as he did during his interview with our office, as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. It would be difficult to convince a jury they should convict him. According to the report, Mr. Biden did not remember when he was vice president, forgetting on the first day of the interview when his term ended, and forgetting on the second day of the interview when his term began. He did not remember, even within several years, when his son Beau died.
This is not good for President Biden. I've got a lot of questions, but first, your thoughts.
Well, it's a sad deal. NBC's not going to report that they should have indicted him, and they were saying, we don't think we can get a conviction. And Trump had some of the same stuff, and he was offered the opportunity to turn it back in. Mm-hmm. And, where they're messing up on that, Bush and Reagan, they just gave everything to their library. The people at the library had to figure out, if it should be transferred or not. I don't see any reason for keeping it, for a long period of time. But Trump, if he thinks he's right, he just rides it out. I mean, he'll roll the dice and he won't give up. It'll be interesting to see what happens when he goes through that trial, if and when that happens. But Biden's deal showed me, here's the key that I would tell you that I'd like to get across today. Biden's press conference, when the press was standing there like a bunch of lapdogs, they were tough, and they turned on him. It's the first time they've done that. And they were yelling their questions, and they smelled blood. And I think that the national media and some of the leadership in the Democratic Party, they want Biden out of there. They don't think he can win. Mm-hmm. And once I saw that press conference, I said, it's the beginning of the end for him.
That was one of my questions. Did we witness the beginning of the end?
Yes, absolutely, because they treated him just like they'd treat Trump or somebody else.
Those lapdogs turned into pit bulls.
Yeah, over a few seconds.
And they had to. They had to do it. They couldn't let this slide.
Well, if they were going to be any type of journalist, if you're going to be somebody in journalism, you just can't continue to ask, well, how did the ice cream taste? Right. Was it good?
Right.
You got to get away from that. And they're going to ask tough questions. They always ask Trump tough questions, and that's part of it.
He's lost the media.
No question, he's lost the media.
Yeah.
They're gonna continue to ask questions that I think they realize that there's a good chance he may not be able to win, and there's a lot of Democrats that want to change to show how dissatisfied the public is with the choices right now. Kennedy Jr. He's getting 34%, and that's kind of unheard of. And the media's been against him, and they've tried to portray him as a nut, and he's showing some growth. And then there's a lot of people that say they didn't vote for Trump in 2020. They did in 2016. They didn't in 2020, and they wish they had. So he's getting some of that back. I thought Trump's best speech that I've seen him give was when he won the Iowa caucus. He was really humbled and was appreciative and everything. But by New Hampshire, he was back at, he was throwing a few counter punches and was after it. But I think Trump's got a good chance. And when the media turned on Biden, that told me that they want him out.
Yeah.
And they want him replaced. And I don't know, who that would be, but it would be someone that they would think would have a chance.
And I don't think President Biden is going to step down. He's not going to go about do it himself.
It would be very rare. I mean, he's always wanted to be president. He's president now, and I don't see him giving that up. But if you look at, he had a pretty tough comeback. He doesn't take criticism very well at all, and not that most presidents. Reagan was the best at taking criticism. He just ignored them, act like they didn't matter, and then he'd just go on down the road, and he would stay on his theme, whatever his theme. If they tried to get him off his theme, he'd say, "Well, that's a good question," and boom, he'd come back to his theme. And but Biden gets mad. You've seen that during the campaign when some individual at a town hall type meeting would ask him some question.
Yeah.
And when he invited the guy outside or something, it's kind of like the guy from Oklahoma. Don't get into a fight.
Yeah.
Whatever Bernie said, you're a U.S. senator. Sit
That's
down.
right. I'm curious, for those of us that never practiced law, is the DOJ maybe setting something up here for further down the road that we couldn't get a conviction here because of his mental state? So they know all this other stuff might be coming, and they got to get him off the hook that way?
Could be. I don't know. I think they were saying, listen, we just couldn't get a conviction. But that's similar to what they said about Hillary Clinton in those emails.
Yeah.
We just can't get a conviction. There was a district attorney in Lubbock named Alton Griffin, and he just took the approach that we'll just let the jury decide.
Yeah.
He used to tell his assistant DAs, don't hide evidence. Don't do anything. Give them everything you got. And if you give them everything you've got on the other side and can't get a conviction in Lubbock, well, then you don't need it, because you're going to get a conviction in Lubbock usually. They're a law and order type people.
Right.
So don't mess up and try to hide evidence or anything like that. And he always wants, well, let's just see what the Lubbock jury says.
Yeah, probably a good approach.
And it was a good approach, especially for him, because usually at Lubbock jury would say, guilty.
Well, on to lighter news. My home state of Nebraska, where I lived for 14 years growing up, has dumped its tourism slogan, or is trying to come up with a new one.
They were 50th, rated 50th of the 50 states on their saying, and they changed it. Nebraska, it's not for everyone. That's kind of like the guy that ran for sheriff in Dimmitt and went around saying, you wouldn't want to vote for me, would you? Nebraska, it's not for everyone. They went, and it had some success. They went from 50th in the nation to 46. I mean, that's not it's.
Yeah, it's okay, but they're really not attracting much business or tourism with Nebraska. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I mean, you would listen to that. If I heard that, I'd think, oh, well, what about it? Maybe, especially in January, it's not for everyone.
no, it's not.
When a front comes through and it starts snowing, and the wind's out of the north at 40 miles an hour, and it's 5 degrees, and the chill factor is minus 15. I mean, it's sure not for everyone, including me.
Well, we'll see what they come up with in Nebraska. The governor got right out in front of it and said, "This has to go. We can't have." It was funny for a while, but this has got to go. We can't.
We got to have something a little more positive.
Right? I'm sorry.
I had yesterday. I was reading some things about the Super Bowl. That there's one team that played in 4 Super Bowls and never had the lead in 4 games.
Really?
Yeah, Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, yeah.
That's when they had Bud Grant as a coach, and he was a great coach.
Fran Tarkington.
But he'd get to the Super Bowl, and that was it. And, of course, the other team that was the Super Bowl 4 times and never could win it were the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
And they never could win it.
You're going to tell us about Timmy Smith, right?
Timmy Smith was a kid from Hobbs, New Mexico. Texas Tech recruited me as a great running back. And they checked on his grades. They told him, Timmy, your grade's not real good. He said, yeah, but I'm going to do real good on that CAT exam. It's called ACT. It's not the CAT exam. It's CAT. And he's the leading rusher in the history of the Super Bowl. And he rushed for 204 yards and got 2 touchdowns and was not named player of the game. And player of the game in that Super Bowl was Doug Williams, who was the first African-American quarterback to start. And he threw for like 250 yards, and he had a great game and deserved to be the best player, voted the outstanding MVP. And but Timmy Smith, he was a funny guy. I will say this. After he got so much publicity on that Super Bowl, and I think they won like 52-10.
Yeah.
Joe Gibbs was the coach, who was a great coach. Then got in the car race, the NASCAR business, and won big there. He knew how to organize things. But there were a lot of young ladies in New Mexico that had babies, and there were like 6 or 7 turned up and said that they wanted part of those Super Bowl winnings. I don't know whatever happened on that. Unfortunately, he died, but he was a great running back, and evidently did enough positive things on his CAT exam that he was able to play a few years.
And he was a procreator.
Yes.
He had lots of kids. That record is probably safe for a long time, given the way that the NFL is played now. They don't run the ball. Like, it's a passing game now. Is what
it's really changed.
Yeah.
I still go back to Night Train Lane. He holds the record today in the NFL for the most passes intercepted 12 in one season. And that's when they didn't throw the ball much.
Right.
That was 1952. They were running that ball all the time. And that a lot of teams, they would not throw the ball in the direction where he was the cornerback.
That's smart.
Yeah, they caught on.
Yeah.
He's going to intercept it. The most rings, Tom Brady had the most rings, and Tom Brady had the most rings. And there's also a few teams that have never played in a Super Bowl. Cleveland Browns, Detroit Lions, and they almost had a chance this time. I mean, it was very close. I went to the Super Bowl in '78. Phil Graham and I were about to get elected to Congress. We went to the Super Bowl and got invited to some parties, and they have all the stars there, and we were kind of, they told me, don't ask for autographs. Oh, shucks. Wanted to get an autograph. But I went to the coldest Super Bowl they've ever had. And that was in New Orleans in '78. And the day before the Super Bowl, they had a showing of King Tut, all the archives from his era in Egypt. And we were standing in line, and it started light snow. There were snowflakes.
In New Orleans?
In New Orleans. And that was in 1978. And at kickoff the next day, it was 39 degrees, and that's the coldest Super Bowl. They've always been.
And if I remember correctly, the Cowboys beat the Broncos.
Beat the Broncos. This is a funny story. Phil Graham and I were seated by each other, and Cowboys scored late in the game to win, and the crowd went crazy. And Graham leaned over to me and he said, "When we balance the budget, they're going to do this for us." I thought, my boy is focused on that budget.
Boy, by the way, go back into our library of episodes, and there's a great conversation that you had with Senator Graham. Very, very good. Go back, flip through the old episodes. You'll find it. It's very good.
If you want to know more about government spending and how it can be finalized with a balanced budget and how things can improve, the interview with Phil Graham was great.
Yeah, it was really good. You don't have to be an economist to understand what he's saying.
That's exactly
He breaks it down
right.
into pretty simple terms.
One other thing I was going to mention, they've had 6 wins in the Super Bowl, and so have the Steelers. And that's, pretty good. The Patriots, they've had 6 wins. They've had 5 losses. They've had 11 games they've played in. And to get to the Super Bowl, you got to have a great team, great coach, super players, and you got to have some luck too.
Yeah, definitely got to have some luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Mahomes, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram did an interview of Davis Webb, and Davis Webb was a quarterback at Texas Tech, and he beat Baker Mayfield out, and Baker transferred to Oklahoma and won the Heisman, but Davis Webb could see that the guy behind him was gaining fast, and was a guy named Patrick Mahomes. And they've still maintained a great friendship. And so for his senior year, Davis transferred to Cal Berkeley and played for Sonny Dykes there, and then was drafted by the Giants and played for the Giants and the Jets and Buffalo. Played for all 3. And one time somebody asked his mother about him being third team. His dad's a football coach, so his dad wanted him playing. His mother said, "Hey, he's making hundreds of thousands of dollars and wearing a cap and holding a board to ride on, a clipboard, and that she thought that was a good position for him." Those motherly instincts always kick in no matter who it is or where. Yeah. And he's now a quarterback coach at Denver. But he just said Mahomes has not changed from when he was, with them in college. And Mahomes, my grandson knew him well in college. And one time the police came to his apartment, Mahomes' apartment, and there was a party going on, and they asked who had the apartment as Mahomes, and they said, "Hey, you can't have this big a party." He said, "I didn't invite anybody. These people just showed up, and they were over there telling me he played a good game, and they showed up and brought beer and whatever." And the police laughed about it, and they told everybody, "Y'all need to go home." And they didn't do anything, but it was pretty funny. So I didn't mind having a party. I didn't have invitation, didn't invite anybody, didn't tell anybody. They just showed up.
Tends to happen when you're Patrick Mahomes. I just saw a picture of his home in Missouri.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. It's got a little par 3 golf hole on it. It's a mansion, swimming. I mean, you name it. It's unbelievable.
Well, for someone from White House, Texas, that's where he grew up, White House, Texas, and that's the one where they were, Secret Service were in Tyler, and President Ford was going to go back in the campaign, and they were walking across the gymnasium floor that they were going to have his rally in the gym, and they were walking across the floor. And the guy that was a custodian there yelled at him, "Hey, get off that floor, get off that floor." White House is a local town there, and White House's big rival is ARP, A-R-P. And he said, he told him, "Get your ass off that floor." And they said, we're from White House. He said, I don't care if you're from ARP, get off the floor. President Bush always liked that story. You know.
I don't care. That's funny. Man discovered a lost wedding ring and tracked down the owner, but there's a catch to that.
Yeah, this was hilarious. The guy had his metal detector out. There's certain people, and you'll see them sometime on a playground or something, they have a metal detector out. And they love to hunt for things. A little weird, but they do.
They live by the finders keepers losers weepers rule.
That's exactly right. Finders keepers go, losers weepers.
Yeah.
And he found this ring, and it had initials and a date and everything. And he got to investigating, and he found who he thought was the truthful owner. And he called her and told her he had found a ring, had some good news for her. And she said, I don't want it. We're divorced. You can throw it away again, or you can sell it. Do whatever you want to with it. He thought she'd be saying, "Oh, thank you," and come over, and I'll pay you for it and everything. Hell no, I don't want it. You can have it.
He probably thought there was a reward in it somewhere.
Yeah, wasn't a reward for him in it. Remember this on Valentine's Day. You need to take them to dinner and take them roses. Always go by the grocery store and get some roses. Mm-hmm. They're a little more reasonably priced. You have a florist. If you want them delivered, if you're real busy, it's going to cost you a little more. But one time when I was chancellor, I went by the United Supermarkets on 4th and Slide and bought a dozen roses. And when I got up to check out, this little girl that was running the cash register, she'd been crying. And I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "No. Heath Ledger just died." And I said, "Did he work here?" And she looked at me. She almost got a whiplash. She glanced at me and she said, No, he did not work here." You just wonder, I would have said, was he over in produce or back in poultry? And I got home and told my wife about it, and she said, "He's a movie star. He played the Joker or something in Batman."
Yeah.
And so, I didn't know. And it was, I startled her, I think, that somebody didn't know. That's it. Saying of the day was failure. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you're still competing, that you're out there trying hard. It's a good saying.